Joining me on the show now is Lisa Curtis. She has been Deputy Assistant to former US President Donald Trump. Thanks very much, Lisa Curtis, for joining me on Global Lens tonight. Let me begin by asking you the most obvious question. That viral image of Trump's fist in the air, blood streaked on his face as he's surrounded by Secret Service agents and shouts, "Fight, fight, fight." I think it would be pretty safe to say it's already the iconic image of the 2024 US presidential election. Many are calling it among the most iconic images in American history. The question is, has Saturday changed the course of American politics and this particular US presidential election? How do you look at it?
Yes, I think the assassination attempt against former President Trump has changed the course of this campaign. And I think you're also right that that image of former President Trump, after having an attempt on his life, seconds later, standing up, pumping his fist, saying, fight to his supporters, really was a memorable moment, not only for this campaign, but in American political history. It was a remarkable moment, and it does show the former president's strength and fortitude. We don't always know how people will react in this kind of crisis situation, and the fact that he stood up and showed that kind of strength and fortitude, I think was quite remarkable. And even people who are not supporters of the former president would have to admit that this was a remarkable moment and made him, look like a hero. And this is just something that is undeniable. And so, yes, I think this entire tragedy, it was such a tragic moment that somebody resorted to this kind of violence in our politics. It was a tragedy of immense proportions, but we can only hope that it will have the overall impact of lowering the political temperature in the United States. And I think both campaigns, both the Biden and the Trump campaign, have been clear that they will call for unity, that this will be the tone of their messaging moving forward. So perhaps we can have something positive come out of this horrific tragedy. And we can all just be extremely grateful that the former president is safe, but also feeling for the family of the innocent bystander, the rally goer who was killed. That's a tragedy, as well as the two other injured.
Right. I'll come back to this point of political violence in the US and the call for unity that you just mentioned. But before that, I want to ask you another straightforward question. Lisa, there are some who've gone to the extent of saying that after Saturday's assassination attempt, it no longer matters who the Democrats field in the presidential race, whether it is President Biden or somebody else. They actually believe that the election is pretty much over and Donald Trump is going to win. Do you believe that following this episode, Donald Trump has managed to win the endorsement of many fence sitters across the United States?
I don't think we can say that. This is going to be a close election. We've always known that. There's been a lot of twists and turns, so this may not be the last twist or turn that we see. So I would be cautious to those who think they can, make a definitive call. I'll repeat what I just said in that certainly the former president, his handling of this horrific act and his show of strength and fortitude does show something about him as a candidate. And people were watching, and they'll see this. But there are also implications for the Biden campaign. And I think those are mixed. On the one hand, it's taken the focus off of President Biden's poor campaign performance just a couple of weeks ago. It's taken that out of the news. But this could be temporary. It gives President Biden the opportunity to draw on his strengths as a uniter, his statesmanship. These are qualities, he does have, and this gives him an opportunity to show those qualities. But I think the real challenge for President Biden is that he wants to show the high stakes of the election, but yet he can't say that they're so high stake that people need to, uh, use violence or that this somehow justifies violence. So he has to walk a very fine line. So I think there are implications for both campaigns, and we're still seeing how this plays out.
Okay, elections are still 4 months away. As we've seen with Saturday's incident, a lot can change overnight. But Lisa, we know that America has a long history of political violence. 4 American presidents have been assassinated over 200 years. There have been multiple assassination attempts on a few of them, including Ronald Reagan. Now, Donald Trump. Um, while Trump has said that he is now going to deliver a very different speech at the Republican National Convention to the one that he had prepared before the assassination attempt, do you really believe that, Americans can be united at this point in time and that Trump can be a unifier? Because frankly, his critics will point out ad nauseum that he has built his entire political career on politics of persecution and victimhood. Many say he's the most divisive president the United States has ever had, and that American society currently is more polarized than ever before. So even as Trump says, I want to unite Americans, and President Biden says to both sides, let's cool it off, let's lower the political temperature, you still have Republicans who are acrimoniously actually blaming President Biden and the Democrats for this assassination attempt on Donald Trump. So do you fear that there could actually be more instances of political violence going ahead rather than fewer of them?
Well, I think that there's going to be changes in the way security is performed for these campaign events. There have been a lot of questions about the fact that the building was not secured, that the person who attempted the assassination was able to get access to this building that was only, I guess, 500 feet away from where the former president was standing. So there are a lot of questions that the Secret Service has to answer. But I do think that this event will make the Secret Service step up security in every way, shape, or form, making it more difficult for any potential future acts of violence to occur at these events. But will this cool down the overall temperature? We have yet to see, but I think what's important here is that from the two leaders of both campaigns, they have indicated that they're committed to lowering the temperature. And the former President Trump has said that he was changing his remarks that he will provide at the convention. So, let's see what that speech looks like. But, right now at this moment, the leaders of the two campaigns seem to be committed to lowering political rhetoric. You are right that there have been some Republicans who have been blaming Biden's rhetoric on the assassination attempt. I think, this is something that's not useful. It's not helpful. And if the former President Trump, really is committed to unifying and to lowering the political rhetoric, he's going to have to get that message to his supporters and to the people who are supporting him at the highest levels. So this is something that's incumbent on former President Trump to get that message down to all levels of his supporters.
I'm very glad you say that, because it's not just some Republicans. Donald Trump Jr., the former president's eldest son, has said They have tried to take him out in so many ways. Financially, they've tried to throw him in jail. It's almost as if they would love for this to happen. And then he went on to say that after the assassination attempt, those on the left can no longer accuse his father, the former president, of culpability for the 6th January attack on the US Capitol. Now, Lisa, we all know that one of the strongest criticisms against Trump has been that he incited the political violence that we saw, the insurrection that we saw at the US Capitol on 6 January 2021, which has been described by many as the worst assault ever on American democracy. Do you believe that the Republicans can successfully change that narrative following Saturday's events?
Well, I think the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, 2021 was a terrible assault on U.S. democracy. But I also think the attempted assassination of former President Trump on Saturday night was also an assault on U.S. democracy. So I think, the overall message here is what's happening to our democracy. Let's look at, what is happening to this democracy and see if we can fix that. And I think, whichever candidate can best address that issue and speak to that in an eloquent manner is the one who's probably going to get more support moving forward.
Final question, Lisa, before we let you go. What kind of a campaign are we likely to see from here on? We had Professor Scott Lucas on the show just a few minutes ago, lamenting the fact that, while the discussion should be around the state of the economy, immigration, jobs, and issues that, affect the lives of ordinary Americans, it's a lot of other extraneous issues that have taken center stage, primarily thanks to the Trump campaign. Do you believe that a lot of those issues are now going to be completely swept aside, with just these emotive issues now, in a sense, dominating the entire election cycle?
I don't think so. I think all the issues that you just raised are still very important to the American people. Look, this assassination attempt just took place 48 hours ago. So obviously it's still on the minds of Americans and will be on the minds of Americans. But that's not to say that other issues won't come up. In fact, we're going to hear about other issues at the Republican convention this week. So I think, this is a dominating factor now, the idea of political violence and the harsh political rhetoric that has come to define this election campaign, but it's certainly not the only issue, and Americans still care about everyday issues that are affecting their lives, and they're still going to be looking to both campaigns to explain how they would take the country forward in the next 4 years. So I think, this is not to shut out every other issue, but yes, for the next couple of weeks, this will dominate the way people are looking at the candidates and looking at the campaign. And they're looking at how both candidates will react, how they will lead the American people through this difficult period. So this is an opportunity for both candidates to show their leadership, how they react in a crisis, how they unite Americans, and how they would lead. So in that respect, I hope that we see a more elevated campaign and we see a less, argumentative and less harsh campaign moving forward. That's my hope.
Well, that's our hope too, because nobody wants to see this kind of violence at all. Finally, Lisa, very, very quickly, any thoughts on the multiple conspiracy theories that are doing the rounds, including one that says that this attack might have been staged?
Okay, that's simply ridiculous. The idea that somehow this would be staged. What we saw is former President Trump is alive because perhaps he turned his head at the last second. He was millimeters away from either being gravely injured or killed. So this is just a ridiculous conspiracy theory. that needs to be quashed immediately. It's not becoming of the American public and America. And I think, the true leaders in the country recognize that this is a ridiculous conspiracy theory.
Well, we certainly hope, whichever way this election goes, there is no further political violence in the United States of America. Thanks so much, Lisa Curtis, for joining us and sharing your perspective with us.